Okay, rational equations. So we've done all the expressions, now let's get to equations and actually solving these. So, an example of a rational equation is like 4 over x minus 4 equals x plus 1 over 9. So it just has a rational expression in it. And there's two ways to solve these, and we're going to go through both of them. So we have 7 over x minus 6 equals 4 over x. Always start with stating the restrictions. And the restrictions are what make the denominator equal 0. So my restrictions here are x can equal 6 and x can't equal 0. Because I'm going to take the bottom, so I take x minus 6, and that cannot equal 0. So I'm going to add the 6 over, so x cannot equal 6. Then for this part, just x cannot equal 0, and that's already solved for us. Okay? Now we have our restrictions, and those are important because you always have to go back and check once you get your answer that your answer isn't one of your restrictions. Okay? And the reason those are restrictions are because you cannot divide by 0. Like say you have 7 cookies, you can't divide those into 0 groups. It just doesn't make sense. Okay? So we're going to use the proportions method here. So basically we're going to start by cross multiplying. So that's going to be 7 times x equals 4 times x minus 6, which is 7x equals 4x minus 24. Subtract that 4x, so 3x equals negative 24. Divide by 3, and x equals negative 8. That's not a restriction, and that's our answer there. Okay, we're going to use the proportions method again here, because if you ever have just two fractions, one on both sides, I would always use proportions. It's just a little bit easier. So first we're going to state our restrictions. So a cannot equal 8, and a cannot equal negative 1/2. And you get that negative 1/2 from the 2a plus 1 cannot equal 0. Subtract the 1. So 2a cannot equal negative 1. Divide by 2. So a cannot equal negative 1/2. Okay. Now let's cross multiply. So you get 3 times 2a plus 1 equals 7 times a minus 8, which is 6a plus 3 equals 7a minus 56. Subtract that 6a over, you get 3 equals a minus 56. Add that 56 back, and you get a equals 59. That's not a restriction, so we're good. Okay, here, again, we're going to use proportions. And restrictions are r can equal 1 and r can equal 0. Cross multiply this, so you get r squared equals 4r minus 1, which is r squared equals 4r minus 4. Now whenever you have an r squared term, get everything to one side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract all that over, so that's r squared minus 4r plus 4 equals 0. Now I'm going to factor this. So that's r minus 2 and r minus 2, which means r equals positive 2, because you set both those equal to 0, and it's the same answer, so r equals 2, which is not a restriction, so we're good. Okay, let's look at this one. My restriction here, I forgot to write, of course I did. So that's m cannot equal 2. Write that down because it's going to go away. So m cannot equal 2. Cross multiply this. Oh, I did write it. Look at me. And then you get m plus 3, m minus 2 equals 3 times 8 is 24. We need to FOIL that out or distribute it or use the box. So that's m squared minus 2m plus 3m minus 6 equals 24, which is m squared plus m minus 6 equals 24. Subtract that 24 over. M squared plus m minus 6 or minus 30 equals 0. So that's m plus 6, m minus 3, or m minus 5, sorry. So m equals negative 6 and positive 5. You can have two answers. Neither one of those are the restriction, so we're good. Okay. You can do examples E and F. You should get those two answers right there. Okay, that's the answer for F. The x equals negative 9/2 and 2. Okay, let's get into this. So this is where we have two possible options what to do here. So first, always write your restriction, so n cannot equal 0. Whenever there's a subtraction sign, distribute that subtraction sign. So that's 4/3 plus negative 7 over n equals 1/6. Now let's condense this to a proportion and then use the cross multiply to solve. So we're going to look at the left side, possibly. Maybe we are. We were going so well. Okay, one sec. Pause. Whoa. See what's happening? Okay, we're going to use the left side to solve. So we have 4/3 plus negative 7 over n. So we have to get a common denominator there. I'm going to multiply that first by n over n, second by 3 over 3. So you get 4n over 3n plus a negative 21 over 3n, which is 4n minus 21 over 3n. I'm going to bring down that equals 1/6, and now we can cross multiply this. Maybe. So you get 6 times 4n minus 21 equals 1 times 3n, which is just 3n. So that's 24n minus 126 equals 3n. Subtract that 24n, and you get, or subtract the 3n, and you get 21n. Subtract or add that 126, and you get equals 126. Now divide by 21, and you will get n equals 6, which is not a restriction, so we're good. Okay, let's see. Let's do this one. So we have 3 over k minus 1/2 equals 12 over k. So first we have k cannot equal 0. Then we're going to distribute that subtraction sign. And now we're going to use this one with the least common denominator. So the least common denominator, let's look at our denominators. We have k and we have a 2. So we're just going to put those together and it gets 2k. So that's my least common denominator. And I'm going to multiply that to each individual term. Okay, and I'm going to put it over 1 because it makes it a little bit easier to see, like, oh, that will cancel, that will cancel, that will cancel. Okay, and then we're just going to start canceling stuff. So those k's right there cancel, those 2's cancel, and those k's cancel. So I'm left with 2 times 3 plus k times negative 1 equals 2 times 12. So that's 6 minus k equals 24. Subtract that 6 over, and you get negative k equals 18. So k equals negative 18, which is not a restriction, so we're good. Let's look at this one. So I'm going to factor that bottom first. So I have p minus 2, p over p minus 2 plus 2 equals 8 over p minus 2, p plus 2. So my restrictions are p can't equal 2 and p can't equal negative 2. My least common denominator here is the p minus 2 and the p plus 2. And I'm going to multiply that to every single term here. And I'm going to put it over 1. So I have p minus 2, p plus 2 times p over p minus 2. P minus 2, p plus 2 times 2. P minus 2, p plus 2 times 8 over p minus 2, p plus 2. Those p minus 2's cancel. Those p minus 2's cancel, and those p plus 2's cancel. So I'm left with p plus 2 times p minus 2, p plus 2 times 2, and that equals 8. So that's p squared plus 2p plus, I'm going to just pull that 2 to the front, times p squared minus 4 equals 8. So that's p squared plus 2p plus 2p squared minus 8 equals 8. So that's 3p plus 2p minus 8 equals 8. Subtract that 8 over, you get 3p squared plus 2p minus 16. Then you factor that. When you factor, you end up getting p minus 2, 3p plus 8, which means p equals 2, and p equals negative 8/3. Okay? Let's do this one. So first, we're going to factor the bottom, and we're going to distribute that negative to the top. So you get 13 over 3 times w minus 1 plus negative 1 over w minus 1 equals w over 9. So w cannot equal 1. I'm going to do this by proportion, so I'm just going to get a common denominator on the left side. So I'm going to multiply the second fraction by 3 over 3. So you get 13 over 3w minus 1 plus negative 3 over 3 times w minus 1, which is 10 over 3 times w minus 1. I'm going to bring down that w over 9, cross multiply, and you get 9 times 10 equals 3w times w minus 1. So that's 90 equals 3w squared minus 3w. Subtract that 90 over. Now if we look at this, there's a GCF there. So I'm going to divide all of that by 3. So you get 0 equals w squared minus w minus 30, which is w minus 6, w plus 5. So w equals 6, w equals negative 5. Cool? Okay, let's do this one. So x cannot equal negative 3. I need to distribute that negative to the top, and it distributes to both terms. So that becomes negative 5x and negative 12. Now I'm going to do this one with the denominator. So my common denominator here is x plus 3. And that's what I'm going to multiply to each of these. Those x plus 3's cancel. Those x plus 3's cancel. So you're left with x plus 6 equals 2 times x plus 3 plus negative 5x minus 12. So that's x plus 6 equals 2x plus 6 minus 5x minus 12. So x plus 6 equals negative 3x minus 6. Add that 3x over, subtract the 6, and you get 4x equals negative 12. So x equals negative 3. But our restriction was negative 3. So then we just get no solution. If your restriction is ever the same as your solution, it doesn't work, because if you plug that back into the equation, you're going to get an error because you're dividing by 0. So the answer is no solution. Okay? You can do example L. You should get c equals negative 2. Remember, y'all are going to change the world someday. Of course I wrote that. But you really are going to change the world because you guys are super, super awesome. And yeah, remember to take the quiz. Bye.